Hi guys. All right, so I'm here to talk about the upcoming Mercury retrograde, which is coming up at the end of this month. It's going to be happening in the sign of Gemini, backing up into Taurus, meaning that we need to prepare ourselves to think differently when it comes to values. This has been a theme that's been going on for quite some time, not only with the last set of eclipses, but with this Venus retrograde that we just finished and completed that started in November, December, went through January, and continued on through pretty much to March. But this theme seems to not want to go away, and it will be relevant to the next set of eclipses. So I think it's important to talk about and get prepared for this Mercury retrograde. Now, the retrograde season includes a pre-shadow, a retrograde, and a post-shadow, which are all equally important. And I'm going to be talking about all three in this video. And I will, of course, then in my membership group be giving daily and weekly advice as we actually go through these events. But here's a little bit of an intro about what we can expect with this Mercury retrograde in Gemini that's coming up. Now, I thought let's take this a step back and let's just kind of look at what a retrograde is from an astronomical perspective, keeping all astrology aside. And I have this video, and actually, it is a video that kind of poo-poos the whole idea of astrology, but I'm not concerned with that. I think she does a fantastic job in explaining the physical representation of Mercury retrograde in the sky and what is actually happening from the stance of Earth's perspective. So I'm going to share that with you. And again, this is from Vox Observatory on YouTube, and the title of it.
You may have heard that Mercury is retrograde again, but if you try to find out what that means, search results are dominated by astrologers who believe that Mercury can make you spill coffee on your favorite shirt or cause your car to break down. But if you set aside all of those creative interpretations, there's actually a real astronomical phenomenon underneath. So let's start with the basic layout of the solar system. The planets closest to the sun move faster and the outer planets move slower, but they all go in the same direction. Apparent retrograde motion is when the planets appear to temporarily change the direction of their orbit. They don't change direction, it just looks that way from Earth. It's an illusion that unfolds over a matter of weeks or months. In this image, Mars was photographed every 5 to 7 days between October 2011 and July 2012. Once all the photos were combined by aligning the stars in the background, it appears as though Mars looped back on itself before continuing on its orbit. A retrograde illusion like this happens when we lap an outer planet like we do with Mars every 2 years, or when an inner planet laps Earth like Mercury does every 4 months or so. But for both Mercury and Venus, the illusion is hard to actually capture, since they're located on Earth's day side, not on our night side. When those planets are visible, it's only right around sunset and sunrise. But assuming you could see it, here's a diagram of how the Mercury retrograde illusion would work. This line shows our view of Mercury against the background stars. As Mercury passes us by, our line of sight shifts so that for about 3 weeks, Mercury will appear to loop back on itself when viewed from Earth. It's simply a function of two objects orbiting in the same direction at different speeds. If you stood on Mercury, you would see Earth make an apparent loop too.
So here is, again, the key takeaway here is that it is not really that Mercury goes retrograde or moves backward in the sky. It's from Earth's perspective, but that in itself has a significant impact to our sense of reality and things that are playing out. So let me go ahead and talk about the three different phases. The pre-shadow phase. This is the phase that I actually think is probably one of the more important ones, but often overlooked, because it is when the situations and problems arise. We usually kind of get into snafus in this phase that then during the retrograde phase we're having to retrace steps on and kind of reflect on, hey, what happened during the pre-shadow phase? Where did I have something wrong? And it is usually, it is always during the retrograde phase that we have what's called a Mercury cazimi, where Mercury meets back up with the sun. And it's during this time that we start to feel the breakthroughs of these aha moments of, hey, I figured it out, of what was happening back during the pre-shadow phase. And then again, equally important, we have the post-shadow phase, and this is a chance to correct it. And usually the universe sends us a scenario or a situation following the same kind of theme and flavor, and we are being tested in this phase to see if we've actually learned the lesson. So let's get into the details of the Mercury retrograde, which is happening in the sign of Gemini, which means that Mercury, ruler of our minds, and Gemini, all to do with how we gather information and whether or not we're looking at detail, means that we are going to have a about face or a new perspective that's coming in. And I'm sharing this picture, which is kind of funny, and for what I feel actually really demonstrates what this Mercury retrograde in Gemini is about. And there is this sense as we step into the Mercury retrograde and getting ready for the Taurus New Moon and all the transits that are coming in within around that time, that we're very excited about something, yet we're in that excitement, we're missing out, or we're not seeing the smaller detail of things. So I thought that this would be a perfect picture to kind of demonstrate what one potentiality of what this Mercury retrograde in Gemini could be about. And especially there's so much in the way with the Taurus New Moon in regards to Venus related themes of money, of relationships, but again, needing to pay attention to the small detail of things. So let me get into the different phases. We have the pre-shadow phase. Again, this is the phase for me that is the most important, the most critical. This is where the potential of problems arise, and that's coming from April 27th through May 9th. And we have some significant transits happening in the final days of the Aries new moon cycle. For those on my membership group, you know I follow the moon cycle. We are completing the moon cycle that began on April 1st, running all the way to April 29th. And so these final days of this Aries new moon cycle are when we're receiving in the harvest of a newly defined self as spiritual warriors ready to face this stark new reality that's coming in. And we have Mercury making a sextile to Jupiter. This is very expansive. It's really great. It opens our minds. We open ourselves to new opportunities. There's a danger of being a bit overzealous, a bit over excited about something. And soon after, the day after, Mercury makes a trine to Pluto as well as a semi-square to Chiron. And this is where I think the potential for issues can arise. We are making a commitment, and yet there's some red flags that could be presenting. And so we'll definitely want to be paying attention to that day, to April 28th. As we get excited about these harvests coming in, but making sure that we're not overlooking any red flags. The next day, Pluto goes retrograde, and so this is kind of stamping the trajectory not only of this Mercury retrograde, but also of this next, the Pluto retrograde, which extends out all the way to October 9th, but also the Taurus New Moon eclipse, which happens on April 30th, which also runs out to the very end of October. Now, it is on April 30th that Mercury enters the sign of Gemini, which it's at the 0 degree of Gemini, which just happens to be where it will then meet up with the sun in the retrograde phase, where we're going to get these aha moments. So pay attention to April 28th through April 30th. Those are key markers of any potential red flags that we will be reviewing then during the retrograde phase, or what we're reflecting back on. Now, the only other main transit that Mercury makes during this pre-shadow is when it sextiles Venus on May 6th. And there's this connections and such that are made with people and situations based off of these decisions that we made on April 28th that kind of gel the decisions in the trajectories in regards to money and relationships on May 6th. But then on May 10th, Mercury goes retrograde, and it will be retrograde all the way through to June 2nd. And remember, when Mercury goes retrograde, we're reflecting, we're retracing steps. And it is important to note that Mercury is not making any aspects, really, since from May 6th, when it makes that sextile to Venus, all the way up to May 18th, when when Mercury makes a semi-square to Venus. And I'll note that in this paragraph. By the way, everything that you see bulleted are transits that are in common theme throughout each of the three phases. I've put the ones that are kind of unique to their particular phase in the paragraph. So we have in Mercury going retrograde on May 10th, the time of the first quarter moon. Nothing really, there's no action in that first quarter moon week, the week of challenges. And because Mercury is not making any aspects to any planets and it's retrograde, this could be a time that we're deeply reflecting. We really can't really talk about anything with anybody or bounce ideas off. This is something that we're reflecting internally within ourselves. Then we have the Scorpio lunar eclipse, which is significant on its own. I'll be talking about that again in the eclipse video that I'll be doing, and how this Mercury retrograde is interlacing with it. But it isn't until the week of breakthroughs that we get these realizations of, oh my gosh, I've seen where I've overstepped. I didn't see the detail back during the pre-shadow. I'm having all these aha moments with the Cazimi on May 21st. And so this will be a time in that full moon week that we will have this perspective shift coming in. Then we have the post-shadow phase coming from June 3rd all the way to June 20th. This now then gets into the Gemini New Moon cycle. The Gemini New Moon cycle begins on May 30th, and this is the post-shadow phase. This is the chance to correct ourselves, and usually the universe throws us a situation that carries the same flavor or theme of the Mercury retrograde, and it's our chance to make course corrections. So we have, again, these critical transits, these common theme transits coming through, primarily in the first quarter moon through to the full moon phases of the Gemini moon cycle. And that's our chance to make these course corrections. June 14th being that critical day, and that happens to fall exactly on the same day as the Sagittarius Full Moon, which is the week of breakthroughs. So this is quite an interesting Mercury retrograde. It's significant in that it is falling or it is coinciding with the Taurus New Moon solar eclipse. It's also coinciding with the Pluto retrograde. Both of these two, the solar eclipse and the Pluto retrograde, have implications for us all the way through to October. I'm sharing the timeline of this eclipse that's coming up. Again, the Taurus New Moon being month number 1, and it all spanning all the way through to October. And of course, the eclipse itself has its own themes and flavors, and that's all going to be laid out when I go into in my video on the eclipses. But certainly, the Mercury retrograde is providing parts of that theme, which is a lot to do with a need to think differently, a need to look at our values, at resources, our relationships in a different way. And it could come with some uncomfortable truths that call us to think differently. So again, check out for those dates. If you would like to subscribe to one of my memberships, I do have the Just the Basics, which is $5 a month. And for that, you get a month ahead report as well as daily updates and reminders via the Telegram channel that I have, which is private. I like to keep it private so that I can try to minimize any bots, etc., coming into the space. And the Just the Basics plan also does come with a retrograde calendar, one that you can print out, and you can have these dates readily available to you in a more organized fashion, readable fashion. And I also have the full access membership group, which is $25 a month, $20 if you join on a quarterly rate. And with that, you get even more videos, more guidance on a weekly basis. I do 4 weekly videos. One is a deep dive into the weekly transits and a day-by-day breakdown of what those transits will be. The second video is a Let's Talk Ascension video. And so it takes the weekly transit and says, now how do we prepare? How do we prepare ourselves for these transits? How do we get ourselves emotionally, spiritually, physically, and mentally aligned for what's coming up and work through any shadow work that needs to be had? The third video is a mini course in astrology, and this is fantastic for those that want to learn more about astrology. And each month comes with a different theme. In this month, we're learning more about Venus because she is the ruler of Taurus, and so she will be greatly activated not only for this Taurus New Moon, but also for this eclipse cycle. And in this month, we're going to be talking about what Venus is or represents on a natal chart. Also, the different placements of Venus, what houses she's in and what that means, what different signs she is in and what that means and how you can apply that to your own natal chart. I'm also going to be, of course, talking about eclipses and our understandings of eclipses and how they play into each of the new moons each month. So if you are interested in learning more about astrology, the full access one would be a good membership for you to join. And last but not least, I do offer up each week what I call an in the news video report about everything or the highlights of things that are playing out in the collective news. Of course, we are entering extreme times. We are entering a time of stark new realities, very important for us to keep abreast of what's playing out in the collective. And I know it can be daunting and it can be difficult to decipher where to go for information, and I offer up what I see to be happening, and you can connect dots from that. And of course, that full access group also includes the access to the Telegram channel with the daily updates and reminders as well, and navigational tips. And all of this is done on my own personal website. This is something I've been working on all throughout last year, given things that are playing out in the collective, and wanting to have a platform that would not experience any interruptions due to censorships or whatnot. And I've been really working hard on perfecting the experience. So definitely do check it out. And both of those, again, they come with a 3-day trial option. So you can check it out first with no obligation to pay. You can cancel at any time within those 3 days and not be charged. Now, of course, I always offer private consultations as well, and I offer two basic types of services with that, and that is the natal chart consultation, which goes over, and it's one where I recommend you start with, because it's one where we go over your evolutionary story, your personality type, your strengths. We also talk about the weaknesses and shadow work that your soul intended to work through in this incarnation, and it just provides an overall roadmap for this life's journey. And then I also offer what I call navigational coaching, and I offer that in a 1 month option, which is just the navigational coaching, or you can also do a 3 or 6 month coaching, which extends into 3 to 6 months periods. And they always follow the new moon cycle. We meet at the time of the new moon. We talk about what the upgrades are going to be bringing in, and usually talk about the themes on a collective level. But then I also apply that to your chart, where you are on your evolutionary story, what will be activated, what maybe shadow work is going to be really focused in on. So definitely do check out those as well if you're looking for more one-on-one guidance in regards to things that are playing out in your life. All of these do include a follow-up call, a 30-minute follow-up call that you can schedule in within 30 days after our call, and they're all recorded. I send out a follow-up email for all my calls with a link to the recording of our session, where you can download that and keep it for your records. And last but not least, I do want to make note that for those that are on my full access membership group, these services come at a 50% discount rate. So yet another benefit that is available on the full access membership group. Well, I certainly hope that you've liked this update regarding the upcoming Mercury retrograde. Definitely do check out my update that I will be making on the eclipse, because these very much work together. And I wish you a wonderful Taurus New Moon solar eclipse. Bye for now.